Hey everyone, welcome back to Rhythm Railroad. So as you can see, I'm still working on this river scene here. If you haven't been following the videos, basically this is going to be the lead that comes from the yard that crosses over the river and lets out on the other side. Obviously I've removed the bridges, which are sitting right up here for now, just to get them out of the way so I can work on the scenery here. But the real reason I'm making this video is because I've gotten a lot of requests to do like a step-by-step kind of thing or a tutorial type video on how I do things. And I mean, I think tutorial is a strong word for what I do. I have done tutorial videos before, but the problem with the way I work is that I do things very sporadically and I go back and forth a lot. And sometimes I do things that look like they're almost done and then I rip it all out, or I completely modify it, or I add to it. So I can't do like a step by step necessarily. It's going to be more like 3 steps and then break 2 steps and then build 5 steps and then break 2 steps. So that's the reason why I don't like doing the tutorial type things. I kind of work as I go, and I'm basically inspired by how things look as they're coming together. So that's why I put a lot of paint down. I make things look almost finished, so I can get a sense of what it's going to eventually or potentially look like. But for example, I already pretty much covered all this with color, with the grounds. That's going to be like the base color. But I realized that I kind of like this better. I like the Sculptamold look better than this flat plaster look. So I'm going to end up putting Sculptamold on top of this, which is going to make it white again, and then I'm going to have to repaint it. So there you go. I did a step in the right direction, only to have to break it down and redo it with the other modification. So I don't know. I guess, I mean, I don't think that's far-fetched. I think a lot of people do work that way, but some people are so structured with their scenery and the way they do things that I'm definitely not in that camp. And I'm probably working against myself, but it doesn't really bother me because I enjoy my time doing that. I don't mind breaking things down and restarting them, and I'm not afraid to like try things and then rip them down again and then redo them. It is scary, I will admit, but so for example, here's something that's kind of scary. So the seam is really scaring me because I already have this finished, right? And I don't want to if I wreck the water, that's going to be a real problem. I don't even know if I can fix that situation. So I had a few gaps that didn't fill in with the original plaster job. You can see now they're filled in, and now I'm not nervous anymore because I was able to achieve that. But when I was putting that plaster right next to the finished part, I was very nervous. And so, it's things like that also come into play when I do my scenery, especially when I'm adding to a scene rather than building the whole scene from scratch. So today, what I'm working on, besides that, I literally just did that before I started this video, is also I started creating a sort of like a continuing type of scene or transition. And what I realize is that because I have such a perfectly straight edge here, that's going to look potentially fake once I add the water effects and whatever else I do, that I have no idea what I'm doing, by the way. I'm just learning as I go. I've never done cascades necessarily at this volume. I've done small things like I did a little one back there, and that came out pretty good. But this is, it's going to be basically all of this with cascade work. And I'm going to put a picture up right now just so you can see what I'm trying to achieve in this particular scene. And so, as you can see in that scene, it looks very, very similar to what's going on here, except that I want to make it so that it's not so simplistic, I guess. I want to have more of a rough transition going through. And so I'm adding more rock to the sloped part. And, I did paint it darker to make it look like, this rock under there. And it would be obviously part of the same rock that's here. and back there, you know. So it all kind of ties in. It makes sense that this would be rocky also, and not just like all of a sudden gone. So I mean, and also it allows you to take your eye away from the straight line here. I'm trying to see what I can do to kind of make it look more, right, more curved. There is going to be straight edges, obviously, but so what I did first, obviously, is like I just explained, I covered the gaps that were, you know, too deep to fill with anything except, you know, plaster, and then obviously I will paint that the same color. But then also, as you can see here, I added this rock mold here to kind of pull it in a little bit, and this one here also to kind of blend it. So now it's not just a straight line going that way. Now it's going to kind of look like it's curved. I added this to kind of bring it forward more here, so I'm getting this kind of shape now, rather than just, you know, what it was before. It was straighter. And also what's going to happen is when you look at the scene, the cascading water is going to be, you know, pushing over the low points of the rock. So like here and like here, but there is going to be some rock exposed just like there. So it'll make your eye kind of break that straight line that you see back there. And I'm looking to do a few more. And if I did one here, this one's a little rougher, but it's lower, so I don't really care. So that's probably going to be mostly exposed. So the water's going to come down this way and then kind of go around. You know, sometimes you get a little bit that pours over from the pressure and the, you know, from the river current. But that looks like something that would be more kind of sticking out, similar to that. And then here I had a big drop in the scene because of the way I built up the foam. So that's why I'm trying to see if I can just kind of add these to kind of break it up a little bit. So I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. You know, I'm still kind of messing around with like the what do you call it? The orientation of these pieces. And this is just basically a mold. You know, I make my molds kind of large like this, and then I just break off pieces as I go. These are a little like thick, so I've been going with the thinner stuff that I had, that obviously I've run out of at this point. They're all here. And so today what I'm going to do is just basically try to put these in place. I did sand down some of the high points here and some of the really, you know, tall like kind of edges at the bottom here, because I want to try to kind of, you know, I imagine the current would eventually erode those edges and it would, you know, make it lower. So this one I think I'd like there. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that in place. And the way I do that is I literally just take some plaster out of the bucket. I take this, I just take the plaster. Sorry about my foot in my pajamas. And just a little bit of the top end. And I try to not get too much on the edge because right now I'm dealing with the water right behind it. So it's kind of like this. And then I work it in like this. I kind of push down to avoid getting the plaster to, you know, push over the seam there. And then I work into it like that. And then when I press down, you don't get all the plaster kind of pushing over and squirting over like toothpaste. And then you're gonna get a little lip here, so I just take my finger literally and just kind of smooth it out. And that's enough to kind of blend it all in, right? I mean, I don't like to have a lot of plaster because then it looks kind of like fake like that. But that's all it takes. Like, I'm done with that. And then I'll take, I guess I could keep this right there. I'll do the same thing with this. Oh, too much plaster. So same kind of idea, just a glob of plaster on the bottom. Start kind of further back and then work into it. And this is what happens. See, so like right now, that's not where I had it originally, but I like it better there. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to fill in that gap in the back that you see there, that pit, with the same rock as here. So I'll just glue them down and once it's, you know, glued down, it won't even move when you put the water effects on top of it. So I just that's just something I just did on the fly. I was not meaning to do that, but I like it because it looks like it's connected. It just makes more sense. So let's see, maybe this one now will make more sense here, because now I kind of, yeah, I like that a lot. All right, so see, there you go. That's how I work. I have no plan. Well, I mean, a little bit of a plan, but. So just do that. See, this is way too much plaster here. So take it out. And sometimes if I feel like it needs to be taller, I'll leave the plaster, like I won't push it all the way down. Like right now, this is not pushed up against the foam down here. It's just kind of floating because there's a glob of plaster on the bottom. And I'll just leave it like that because I like it like that better. Right, so see that now that looks a lot more tied in together. And like I said, I'll fill in these pits with the rock. And then once I do the water effects, see, what I imagine is that when I put the water effects over these things, it'll be like a foamy, whitish kind of water coming through. So it'll hide a lot also. Because as I feel like as water gets to the edge, it starts to foam up a little bit, right? It starts to hit pockets and rocks and things like what I'm putting here. And it starts to kind of foam up a little bit. So that's how I'm going to get around that, I think. I have one more little gap here. So let me see if I can figure something out. I'm going to walk you over to the other side where I have my molds. So the molds that I like to use are these rubber type molds. I don't know if these were purchased or if these were homemade, but I got them from a friend. Oh, I guess they were purchased because there's a price. I just realized that. There's a number and a price. But these are very old. And like I said, they were given to me by a friend that had them. And so I love the way they come out because you get some really big kind of pieces. These are just like the leftovers from those other pieces. But it's a really nice texture. Especially this one. The other one's not as good. But if these are sold still, this is number 8.5, I guess, or 85. Yeah, it looks like an 85. It just got kind of washed out. And this looks like it was $30, so it's pretty expensive considering. So I'm looking for a flattish type piece that's gonna make sense there. See, these are all too like high, like they're too chunky. So let's see if I can. I still had some pieces that never came out. This is too high also. You know, sometimes these little itty bitty pieces, when you put them together, they look really good. So I think I'm gonna go with those. Yeah, see, that's starting to make more sense. Let's see what this is. Oh, this might work also. That's a little high. Well, we'll bring it over anyway and see what happens. This one doesn't really look like anything except just plaster, so I'm not using that. This one here, this looks good. This is a good one. That's a great one, look. So let's just take these over to the other side and see how we can work with that. Sorry about the mess. It's been a lot of building lately. So I'll just put them here for now and start kind of, playing with them a little bit and seeing what works. I think this last piece that I grabbed is really good. It's got this little lip, so I'm just going to break it off. Of course, this is a problem. I can't do it with the camera. Oh, I guess I just did it. All right, so I just broke off that back lip. I think I'm going to stick this in here. Oh, look at that. That's going to be a good fit right there. Yeah, that's perfect. Let me just flatten it. I'm going to flatten out the back a little bit, and you can just do that by either rubbing it up against a flat surface. That's enough to do it. And I guess that right there was tutorial-like. And yeah, I also don't want to put it higher than the water because I need room for the water to fill in. So In other words, you don't want to go so high that it sits up like this at the same height as the water, because then you don't have any room for the water itself. So I'm trying to go below that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my plaster. For this one I need very little, just a little bit to hold it in place. And I'm gonna go ahead and kind of smush it in. Yeah, the other thing you need to remember is once you get the plaster on your finger, just remember it's there, because when you go to touch the top again, you fill in all the little cracks and things that you want to see. So it kind of takes away from the scene if you do that. So be careful when you're using your finger. So yeah, so look, so that's already looking much better. And that's going to take away from the straight line that we had here before. And then obviously once you get the paint, like the rock paint, it's going to seem a lot more broken up, which is what I'm looking for. So it's all smoke and mirrors, pretty much. But, you know, I never knew, if it was up to me, I would have built this whole thing in one shot, but I never knew I was going to extend this so far out. And so, you know, we'll see. I mean, I haven't even tested the water connection. I'll probably just do like a tiny little piece. Like, for example, like here, I'll probably just put a little bit of the water effect once I paint it, obviously. And just see how it connects, because it might just take care of itself. You might not even see like the actual line. But if you do, then I'll have to go and kind of mask it with more of the same material, but just kind of go over it a little bit so there's more ripples on top. So yeah, so that's basically what I did there, and what I'm going to do in order to create this kind of a seam between the old scene and the new scene. And like I said, you know, I'm working as I go. One thing, I mean, I guess I'll give you some pointers. One thing I've run into is sometimes, you know, I get a little impatient sometimes, and I want to get the color in right away. So, like for example, here I'm itching to paint these black right now, and what I do is I use just like a slate gray, you know, like a thin type of a paint. This is very thin, and then I thin it out further with some water, and you know, like a kind of like a wash. I'll just show you, which is kind of like that. So it just kind of runs off like that. But when you put it on the rock, I'll just use this as a tester. You know, and I'm sure this is not anything new to anybody, but when you put it on the rock, the plaster material, I'm using plaster of Paris, by the way. Not, I sometimes use, I forget the name of the other stuff that's like harder. I'll think of it. But anyways, the plaster absorbs it, and then you get this like faded look. And it never absorbs it perfectly even, so that's why rocks always come out good with very little work. That's basically just me going whatever, just put in the wash in any random order. The only thing I find is that the white sticks out. Like once it dries, you still get these little dots and things that you have to kind of go back and flood for it to like go away completely. And that takes a long time. That takes a few washes, at least from what I've experienced. And then you get a better effect like that. And I'll go back and add like highlights and things like that. But you know, this is what I want to do. And I get, you know, you can do it on the rock. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not gonna affect it if you put it on the rock right now. But the problem, what I was gonna say before, is that the issue is not the rock, it's the plaster. So when the plaster's still wet, if you get this wash on the plaster, what ends up happening is it's kind of seals it in a weird way. So then when you go back and you try to get the same effect as with the plaster of Paris, you know, obviously it's slightly different material. So then what happens is you get, I'll show you in 1 second. Let me just finish this off here. You get this kind of thing where it just will not take, like you got to go over it like 1,000 times and it just will not take the color. It just keeps going to like a whitish look. I mean, that right there, this bottom area is all plaster. I had to do that like easy 7 times for it to get even close to what the color on top of it is. So that's the only thing I would try to just steer away from. Like try to just let the plaster dry first, and then it'll react the same way as the plaster of Paris for the most part. I mean, it's not always perfect, but yeah, you can see like right away you start seeing the little dots. So you just got to kind of flood them. And some people like to do like different washes, and you know, it's probably a good idea, but I'm trying to keep this consistent, so I'm just going with one. Because, like, for example, I did add a few more highlights here, and you can see it's going to be hard to match that now. Because I don't remember what I used. I think it was like a little bit of yellow ochre and maybe some burnt umber, like very light coats of that, just to give it a little bit more of like a brownish rock look. So, you know, I'm going to just mess with it and see what happens, because I totally forgot what I did those years ago. It was 2 years ago, actually. So you can see, now it's going to look, initially it's going to look very, very dark. But as it dries, like this one has been sitting for like maybe 15 minutes now, 20 minutes. And you can see it's already significantly lighter. Look at this one. This is the same amount of wash, but see how different that is? It's definitely lighter. What you want the highlights, but you don't want it to be where it's like pure white, you know, like trying to find an example here, but it's sometimes like the white just sticks out like too much. I don't know if you can see this, but right in here, yeah, it's hard to see on the camera, but that's really white. This right here, oh, I'm sorry, that's why you can't see it. This dot right here is really white right there. So, you know, it's sticking out here. So yeah, so that's where I'm at. Obviously I got to let this dry now, so I'm going to try to do something else while this dries. In fact, I ordered some things from Trainland, so I'll probably head down there and grab some things while this dries, and I'll come back and paint this. But yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it for this particular quote-unquote tutorial video. I hope that helped a little bit. And sorry about not being like, you know, my production value is very low. And I should care, but I kind of don't, because I'd rather put the time into, you know, building and then showing you what the potential of the layout could be. I don't know if that sounds horrible, but I'll do my best. How about that? I'll do my best to put the time into to do this kind of stuff more. But I will need a tripod, which I can't find right now. I had one, but I can't find it because it's very hard to work with one hand. And I don't know. I'll try to get a little bit more professional about this whole thing. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care.